This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this week are Richard Halls.
Hello, everybody.
Stephen Lockridge.
Hello, everyone.
And joining us to talk about our DTV Throwback this week is Sean Malloy.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And just to remind everyone, Sean, you run the I Must Break This podcast, correct?
That is correct. Correct. So our the first film I think that we're going to be discussing lends perfectly. It's kind of the bridge between both our respective shows. So thank you.
Yeah. In fact, that'll be on next week's show, but never mind.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's cool. Okay, so the running order tonight is we're going to be talking about Slumber Party Massacre, Red Snow, Stealing No, just did that wrong again. Slumber Party Massacre, Red Snow, Night Raiders, and Stealing Chaplin. Our short shot this week is Boglins Return, and our DTV Throwback is Get Carter, the remake with Sylvester Stallone. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Slumber Party Massacre. Dana Devereaux has been living in her mother's shadow all of her life, but now finally she is joining her friends for a weekend camping. However, on the way, the girls' van breaks down and they find themselves having to stay the night in a lodge in the same area where Dana's mother was attacked many years ago. Surely the same thing can't happen again, can it? Okay, Steve, straight over to you for this one.
It was okay. I did have a couple of issues with it, but I think what it was trying to do, it was a bit more of a woke version, shall we say, more of a feminist. No, it was. I think that's what it was going for. I'm not saying that it was wrong to go with that, but that's what it was going for. The girls know what's happening, and it's that. The blokes across the lake who are like himbos and haven't got a clue, and they're the eye candy and stuff like that. And there was a couple of decent kills in there, but I just felt it was just a little bit flat from what I kind of expected, to be fair. I mean, the opening 5 minutes I thought was quite good. But you get to a point where there's about 20 minutes left and you think, hang on, where's this going to go now? Mm-hmm. But it's pretty obvious where it's going and what's going to happen, if you know what I mean. It was okay. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't amazing. It's quite middle of the road, really, for me.
Okay, Rich.
I liked it. This is in this obviously this week's show. We're bookending it with remakes, both of which I've never seen the original of. So the original was 1982, also directed by a woman, but much lower budget, more typically, as far as I'm aware, more of the period exploitation movie kind of approach. This one what I do like that new modern sort of take on it. Approaching a slasher movie. It's such a well-worn theme, the slasher, that the way they any of these filmmakers are able to come up with new angles and stuff is consistently impressive for me, and I think this really stands out because of that. I did see a review that sort of set it up as like one of the worst films of the year, and I think that was Wolfman's Got Nards had said that, which a YouTuber, who I do like, but I disagree. I don't mind all the the guys are idiots kind of stuff. I think that's kind of guy one, guy two, and whatever. I think that's quite well played. And there's like they have like this pillow fight, and there's a bit with the shower and lingering on the butt shots and everything, which I was just it was quite, I was just laughing. That was actually some of the funniest stuff because it's just a bit unexpected, really. You're just kind of it's just not what you're anticipating, and the way they set up the characters, and that they go to the cabin and whatnot, and that it's all part of a plan. That that they've got a scheme going on, and that I thought was novel, bit of a foolish idea, obviously, but and it doesn't work out very well for them, but it's still quite interesting, and a sense of that they're trying to do something empowering. One of the things that the review I watched did take issue with was the fact that the killer from the opening sequence, who turns up like 30 years later or whatever, or 30 or 40 years later, doesn't appear to have aged at all. It's between the bits. So I guess in the earlier one, he's supposed to be younger. I take it that way rather than the opposite way. But yeah, he's kind of a the killer. I don't know what he was like in the original version, but he's exceedingly one-dimensional. There's literally nothing to his character. He literally turns up out of nowhere with the drill, and occasionally he'll sort of say something like, "Oh, I really love you," or something like that. And "Oh, you're my favorite," or whatever. And it's just like, and that's all they give him. Which I thought there could have been a bit more backstory and stuff there, but never mind. I thought it was well shot. But it was made in South Africa. And
really?
It's all
wow.
And I thought there might well be, there's probably some local actors, but quite often they import American or Canadian actors and stuff. There was another one many years ago called Slash, which had Steve Railsback.
Oh yeah.
And in it, and an actress who was in, I think she was in the X-Files or the spin-off from the X-Files, The Lone Gunman, I think she was in, and she was the lead in that, and that was, I think that was set in America, but shot in South Africa. So yeah, I think it's it all comes across. I mean, it's all remote locations and stuff, so there's no real sort of big issues in terms of geographical, identifying features or buildings and stuff, like if it was shot in a city and you could clearly see it's a very different city or something. But I thought I was good production values, good kills. I like the cast. Can't really ask much more from a slasher movie, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed this. So this is directed by Danishka Esterhazy, who did the Banana Splits movie that we covered possibly about 2 years ago now, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was really good. Very very interesting and unexpected surprise, an interesting sort of twist on the whole Banana Splits thing. I think there was a lot riding on this, because it's a remake of a known sort of slasher. But I think it does a great job of subverting, some of the tropes, with the whole, shifting the male gaze. For definite. I thought that works really well.
I think it's known, but I think it's the title that's known.
I think so. Well, and the cover and the DVD cover or the video cover, which has the women at the feet of this guy who's got the big drill. It's very much like the Scorpions album cover for Animal Magnetism. It's that sort of like misogynistic kind of thing. I think you're right about the villain in that he's not developed particularly well, but it seems like the petrol station, the gas station, it's just one of those sort of classic things. In fact, when we're watching the Puppet Killer last week, it's one of the things they were talking about in that is like, I hope we don't have to stop off and there's going to be somebody telling us we're all doomed and all that sort of stuff. But I loved the idea that these girls were, they make it look like, oh no, our van's broken down, we're going to have to spend the night at this lodge, which we weren't expecting. That was their plan all along. I like that. I like the subversion of the blokes. That reminded me of Tucker and Dale. that sort of thing, because they get the total wrong idea, because he sort of, that was it, the hunky guy with the glasses. He's supposed to be the really smart one.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the mousy bookish one because he's wearing glasses, but he's actually the hunkiest one out of the lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. It's like, well, if only he took over his glasses, he'd be handsome. How many times have we seen that sort of trope used for like the final girl and all the rest of it? So yeah, no, I must admit I thoroughly enjoyed this. So I'm really happy with it. If anything, apart from the sort of one note villain, I think it may be just a bit too long for its own good. Because as you say, Steve, it gets to a point where you sort of like go, hey, and then you look down and you think, shit, it's still got 20 minutes to go. What the hell? But yeah, no, I enjoyed all that stuff. So yeah, it worked really well for me.
The writer of this was Suzanne Kelly, who did. She's got quite an extensive film, series of projects. She did Warrior Nun.
Oh, yes. Love Warrior Nun.
Ash versus Evil Dead. She's worked on.
Yeah.
And Leprechaun Returns, which I also
which we did. Yeah, we really liked that, didn't we? I mean, even though I'd not seen the original, I thought that was a lot of fun. So yeah, no, cool. I mean, for my money, excuse me, Danishka Esterhazy is one of these. She's a director to keep an eye on, as far as I'm concerned. I'm very interested in any sort of project she's got coming up.
Is this only her second film, or has she done?
No, she's done others, and she's done other stuff in between this and Banana Splits. But those are the ones I've seen. I think she did a sort of real crime, sort of like drama documentary kind of thing in between.
Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah.
A film called Level 16, which I think is on Netflix. I think I've spotted that, and it sort of caught my eye. I might have to give that a go. Yeah. She's got 24 credits. Wow. So she's done a lot. She's done a lot more than I realised.
Yeah, done a lot of shorts.
Several features. Say Level 16 she did before the Banana Splits, and she's got she moves between sort of TV and features and stuff. Yeah, really interesting. Definitely interested to see what she does next, because I too, I was a bit late to the Banana Splits party, I think, but I think it was an interesting take on it. I mean, for my money, I think it's, people would probably be familiar with the Nicolas Cage Willy's Wonderland, or Willy's Wonderland film, but I think Banana Splits did the same concept but did it better.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's ridiculous, completely ridiculous, a completely stupid film, but it's a very entertaining watch.
Absolutely.
As is this.
Yeah. So scores on the doors, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich.
I will give it a 7.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on a 7. So it's 2 7s and a 6 for Slumber Party Massacre. Go check it out. Our next review is Red Snow. A few days before Christmas, struggling writer Olivia Romo is attempting to redraft her vampire romance novel after yet another publisher's rejection. In the midst of the night, a bat flies into her window, but soon reveals itself to be an actual vampire called Luke. Canadian production, this one, guys. I must admit, I thought this was quite interesting overall. But Steve, what did you make of Red Snow?
Yeah, it was okay. Kind of reminded me of what was that other one? Was it Rose Love Story?
Oh yeah.
Kind of vibe.
2 people in a cabin, 2 people in a house. Yeah.
Yeah. One's a vampire. Same thing.
Yeah.
It was okay. It wasn't anything new particularly. Just she's like a Twilight writer in a way, and it kind of give off that young adult vibe, kind of falling in love and blah 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 and stuff like that, and then his mates turn up and it all goes to shit, kind of thing. But it was okay. It was a little bit slow in the middle, not much really happening apart from her buying some blood, and I like the fact that that she had no male clothes. She was just like wearing a dress all the way through, stuff like that. I thought that was quite good. Performances were okay. Vernon Wells turning up, a bit over the top as usual, you know. And the other male vampire, he was pretty superfluous, really. Nothing to do. He was, again, bit of eye candy, and that was about it. Well, there's decent gore in it, though. You know, especially when the three vampires attacked and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I like the ending. I thought the ending was quite good. Right, you know, the last shot, but it was a little bit flat, to be fair. But not terrible. It was, you know, it was okay.
Rich?
This is the first festive horror movie I've watched this year. I usually try to fit a few in before Christmas. It's very low budget. You can tell that from the start. But it's I wouldn't say it's micro budget, but it's probably like borderline. You know, they didn't have a huge amount of money to work with. You compare it to something like Werewolves Within, for example, you know, which is also a sort of a low budget B movie kind of thing, but at a much bigger budget. Or even Rose, I would say Rose had probably a bigger budget. It's got better, you know, much stronger cinematography in that. But the draw here is like, do you get on with the characters? Are you interested in the characters and their, you know, their conversations and stuff more than pretty much anything else? I mean, there is gore, but it's not a gory film. But what's interesting is it's got a lot of jokes in it, but I wouldn't say it's a comedy. But it's not got a lot of horror, but it's a horror comedy, but it's not. It doesn't really hugely lean into either. It's which makes it quite unique. I think it's got a different kind of feel. Now, the touchstone I think for this movie, apparent to me from the beginning, is Stephen King's Misery, but it shifts aspects of it. It swaps them around. You know, there's the writer, but in Misery, it's the writer who gets sort of taken hostage, and in this one, it's the writer not taking someone hostage, but finding themselves with a house guest and sort of keeping them in the other room. Now, the motivations and everything are all completely different. I like the fact, you know, it sort of sets up, and she likes vampires, she's interested in vampires, and she's a writer and stuff. But you still kind of go, hang on, what are you doing? You look at the first, you know, you got this strange, you know, guy or whatever. But you know, as you go along with it, you know, there's suspension of disbelief and that required to a certain extent. You know, it's quite fantastical. But I think it does quite well. I did kind of warm to her character. I did kind of become quite convinced of her character as it progressed, and the sort of journey that her character goes on. You know, how she's so different by the end of the film, I thought was really interesting. It's funny because it's a little bit similar to what we were saying with Slumber Party Massacre. It's a film that kind of subverts the usual way these kind of thing goes, and it does things slightly differently. So she's not the sort of simpering, you know, woman falling in love with the sort of handsome vampire kind of thing. There's definitely, you know, it's very different to that, and there's different power plays in that. But when the gore kicks in at certain times, you know, it is a proper horror movie, and the tone is of a proper horror movie. It's not a comedy, as I say, it's not a comedy, but it is comical. So I think it strikes an unusual balance. Vernon Wells as the vampire hunter doesn't get enough screen time as far as I'm concerned, but it's a great little extended cameo. I did like that, and I quite like the small supporting cast. You know, I thought it was I enjoyed it overall much better than I thought from the opening few minutes. I thought I was going to be very switched off, but I became very engaged.
Sure. I must object to the comparison between this and something like Rose or even My Heart Won't Beat Until You Tell It To, because unlike those sort of films, it's not punishing you for liking vampires or vampire movies.
Well, this is definitely not. It's not a dour film in any sense.
This, you know, those sort of films sort of say, yeah, okay, well, if vampires existed, this is what it would really be like, whereas this sort of embraces the whole thing. The very first time we see Luke, he's a fucking bat.
And he's a tiny bat.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Which is brilliant. Having to sort of burst out of that box, I thought that was pretty cool. So this embraces the whole sort of vampire lore and things, and what we know, and then sort of starts cleverly sort of subverting it. The thing which
messing with it, but is it, it turns out that some of the messing with it is actually not messing.
Just messing with her or something.
Yeah, it's all over. It's all over the place. Yeah,
it's like when she's wearing her Count Orlok T-shirt from Nosferatu, and he's going, actually, vampires don't like that. It's like, all that sort of stuff. I thought it was really good. I just really enjoyed this. I even like the bits where they're sort of talking about her book. He uses that as a sort of an olive branch to sort of say, maybe if I give you some notes about your book, it could help you out. And when they're sort of talking about that, I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, and the bit at the end when she's like, "Is that my jumper?" as a sort of turning point, I thought that was really cool as well. It's a solid little film. Not much money behind it, as you say. Even her house, a lot of it is spent in the garage, which is a very sort of sparse location. Even part of the main house. It does, look a bit threadbare at times, but I think the performances are really good. Really enjoyed it. So scores on the doors for Red Snow, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I'll give it a 6 as well.
I'm sticking with a 7 for this one. I really enjoyed this. So, 2 6s and a 7 for Red Snow. Go check it out. Our next review is Night Raiders. In a dystopian future, children are routinely rounded up and forced into military academies where they will be trained to become the killing machines of tomorrow. Niska has done a good job of keeping her own daughter safe, but when she becomes injured, her best chance of survival is to be taken. That's not to say her mother has given up on her, though, as Niska joins a resistance group intent on rescuing her. Interesting that this is a co-production between Canada and New Zealand. That threw me a little bit in the final credits, because I'm thinking, surely this was Canadian. It's to do with it's a political allegory about sort of the treatment of the First Nation. Steve, we covered a film called The Flood not too long ago.
Yes.
Which I was very much reminded of in this, in the way that sort of the Australian sort of First Nation, the sort of Aborigines were treated. Especially around the sort of Second World War and the sort of the things that came into power then. Similarly, here we have an Indigenous people whose children have been ripped away from them to become super soldiers of the future, kind of thing. There is definitely that sort of political side to this. But did this grab you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's well made, it's well shot, script's good, performance is good. It's just a little bit too dour for my taste, if you know what I mean. It's not something that would attract me to it, but they've done a good job with it, with what they've got, and it's okay, but it's not really my kind of film. But yeah, I mean, the brainwashing of the kids and all that kind of stuff, and how she has to give her up, I thought was actually quite heartbreaking. With the injury and stuff like that. The ending not threw me, but I was a bit with right at the end with what the kid does. But again, it's Chekhov's drone pilots or whatever, coming through, mirroring the very first scene of the film, so you kind of get what's coming. But nice seeing Amanda Plummer. Not seen her for a while, to be fair.
She looks very different.
Yeah, she does now. But yeah, no, it was good. Like I say, very well made, very well shot. Just not really my kind of thing that I would normally choose to watch, to be fair.
Sure.
But yeah, all right.
Rich, did you get on with this one?
I've gone better than some of the other sort of similar kind of movies that we've watched recently. That have been, this kind of bleak future, oppressive, New World Order, for example, the one without any dialogue.
Yeah.
Where there was the robots sort of hovering around and whatever. Now, clear this up for me, because I wasn't quite sure. Are the robots tools of the state, or are the robots in charge in this? Because I wasn't quite sure.
I think they're tools of the state.
Right.
They are tools of the state, but about halfway through, I think it's Amanda Plummer's character mentions that they've kind of got AI as well.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of sentient as well.
Yeah.
Or they're becoming sentient.
Right. Yeah, because it was kind of throwing me a bit. I wasn't sure. Are we in like a rise, war against the machines, Terminator-ish kind of future?
I must admit, I wasn't sure. I thought it was like alien invasion kind of stuff going on to begin with. But
But another one that we watched was A Feral World, which also had like a mother in it. Well, not a mother, but more like a mother figure, and the child and stuff. And that was reminded. I think I preferred that actually to this one. It is well, as Steve was saying, it is well made, and that, but it is that sort of tone and whatever. I thought what is interesting about it is that it is about the Cree Nation, the First Nation of Canada, in Canada, which I don't know anything about. So that was quite interesting to sort of get a little glimpse there, and sort of do a little checkup on that they were the sort of the indigenous people of that part of North America and stuff. Apart from that, and Amanda Plummer turning up, I didn't really get much more of it. I mean, it's fairly, quite typical of these kind of movies, especially sort of as you get to the sort of the end of it. It is, it's formulaic. It's routine. It's not actually doing anything particularly different. The sort of allegorical stuff is interesting, but I perhaps didn't engage with that as much as the more formulaic aspects of it. I thought that, there's some really strong scenes, like, for example, when I think she heads back to the town or something, and there's a virus, and they start to get rounded up, and there's a mother, actually I think it's the Amanda Plummer character. She sees her child, grown up, his child who was taken away from her, and tries to engage with him. That's a really good scene, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I didn't like it as much. I can't say it's a bad film, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, this sort of whole dystopian future stuff is becoming a bit rote, even as a sort of political allegory. I must admit that the one that I still enjoy the most is Edge of Extinction, even though that was 2.5 hours long. At least an hour too long for that kind of film. But I thought it carried it off really well. Drone. My feeling about drones. Anyway.
Yeah, I thought that was about. I was thinking of you. I was thinking, how's he going to feel about? It's not just one or two drones. It's like an army of drones.
Yeah, it seemed just sort of a bit of a sort of cheap sort of thing to use. But yeah, some of it I did enjoy. With inverted commas, like the thing with the disease. It was pretty obvious where they had come from. Which was a nice touch. I like the scenes with the daughter in the academy. It reminded me a lot of Hannah, actually. Those bits.
Yeah, I would have kind of liked more focus on her, because it's much more focused on the mother's journey.
Yeah. Which is, I suppose that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is that you're supposed to go aha at the end.
Yeah.
Although that there's something that happens at the end of the film which I just went, why did you need to do that? You didn't need to do that for the story, when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm not talking about what happens with the daughter as far as but there's another thing that happens. I'm like, at the end of the film, why did you need to do that? It's just stupid. But there you go. So it was a nice, it was interesting to sort of see a different facet of Canada, I guess. We don't sort of hear much about the First Nation as a people, and I think that's kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of with the flood as well. A few other films I'm thinking of. There's a sort of modern western that I covered quite recently, which was about sort of the number of Indigenous women that go missing every year is ridiculously high compared to sort of white women or whatever in particular states, and it goes unreported, for so much. The films like The Flood that we mentioned, that really did make our blood boil watching that. Just the indignity of it, and of seeing people being so arrogant to think they can get away with treating a whole people in a particular way and getting away with it for so long is absolutely ridiculous. So good on them. From what I understand as well, this film it broke numerous home box office records for films that do portray sort of First Nation. It did incredibly well in Canada. So good on them, and best of luck with the sort of release in the UK. So scores on the doors for Night Raiders. Over to Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go 6 as well.
I'm joining you on a 6 for this one. 3 6s for Night Raiders. Go check it out. Our final main review this week is Stealing Chaplin. Brothers Cal and Terry are a couple of conmen running scams along the Las Vegas Strip. When some bad people come looking for the $30,000 they owe, the pair hit upon the very harebrained scheme of digging up Charlie Chaplin's coffin and holding it for ransom. We complained a lot about a film called Blonde Purple last week because it was aping the style of Quentin Tarantino without sort of actually understanding what Quentin Tarantino was actually achieving with his films. And director Paul Tanter is a director who I used to deride a lot because of his Downing Street Siege movie and He Who Dares, which I did not enjoy at all. But he's impressed me since with films like Kill Ratio and Once Upon a Time at Christmas. I kind of enjoyed this, I must admit. I think it's got too many characters, and at times it's a bit confusing who's who, other than the sort a few of the main sort of central characters, and it's sort of tying up at the end is messy. But other than that, I must admit I kind of like this. So Steve, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny, it's messy, but overall it does kind of work. There's, like I said, there's far too many characters in it. If they'd have just trimmed that down a bit, I think it would have worked a lot better. But obviously the main two guys, Cal and Terry, they're both thick as pig shit, to be fair. They're absolute numpties. But it works, some of it, like, the female copper and her sister, that bit didn't really need
weak,
to be.
it?
Yeah, it was just didn't need to be there really. I don't know why. And like the guy with the van being tortured and stuff. He just didn't need things like that. They could have took at least 20 minutes out of it and give it a nice trim just to give it that better flow and stuff like that. Even some of the scenes, in their apartment where they're just getting ready for a date or whatever. It's quite funny. It does work quite well, but again, it could have been trimmed a bit. But I mean, I did look into it, because it does say based on a true story. It kind of is, but it isn't, because it happened just after he was buried, about a month after he was buried, and he's buried in Sweden or Switzerland.
All right.
So he's nowhere near Vegas. So he just
weird.
I don't know, plugs it out the air or whatever, But it's like your fun rom. It kind of reminded me of like After Hours or something like that, but or more criminal elements to it. But yeah, it's okay. It's quite good fun.
It's sort of a bit of sort of early Guy Ritchie, a bit of Lock, Stock.
Yeah,
Lock, Stock in Vegas kind of thing, isn't it? A little bit.
Yeah,
with all the different characters and that. Rich, we've covered a couple of Paul Tanter and Simon Phillips's films before. So how do you think this compared to his other works? Their other works?
I always find Tanter's films interesting. I think this is, whether some of them better than others, and but I definitely think this is one of his best as far as I'm concerned. I think there's Simon Phillips has got. I always enjoy his performances. He often plays the same kind of characters, especially in.
I think he's toned it down a lot recently. I mean, when he's doing things like He Who Dares and that, he was very over the top. Which is kind of the point for the character. But I always seem to link him to that sort of OTT performance for a while.
Yeah, well, I guess he kind of the apex of that is like the Once Upon a Time at Christmas, sort of really overblown, villain kind of character.
Well,
cartoon stuff.
That's the thing. I think that's the only one I've seen, and I hated it. I thought he was absolutely dog shit in it. But this one, he's actually quite charming. When he's on the date with the waitress, you're thinking like, well, that's not going to happen. But the way he plays it and the way he talks to her and stuff, you're like, okay, I can kind of see it. He is good in them bits.
Yeah, I do think he's charismatic and relatable. And he's playing him and his brother in this. They're British, and I think that works really well. The whole film is the banter between those guys. It's a banter movie about this sort of. I mean, we've seen that loads and loads of times before, but I think it works really well. What's his brother's name? Because I'm trying to find the actor's name in the.
He's his actual brother.
It is his actual brother, but he's way down in the credits. Yeah.
So his brother Doug Terry is Doug playing Terry. Is it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I thought they had a great. I'd never seen him before in my life, and I was just like, I was like, who? That's really unusual. You think, I thought I would recognize him. He seems like a guy I should know, and he doesn't even have a picture on IMDb. But they had a good play. I guess if they're brothers in real life, that's kind of where it's coming from. The supporting cast is good. I think the cinematography is some of the strongest I've seen in a Tanter film.
Is, yeah,
definitely nice. Very warm cut, warm look to it and everything, which is totally reflects the location or the setting. Whether it was shot there entirely, I'm not sure. But there's some of the scenes, funnily enough, it's kind of some of the extraneous scenes, like you were saying, like the torture scene with the van driver or whatever. I thought that scene looked great. I think it's like one of the best shot scenes in the film.
It looks good.
And that's got I'm probably going to murder his name, Al Sapienza, playing the sort of the gangster on their trail.
The one that looks like name.
He's the
John
one going
Saxon.
to the diner and
he looks like John Saxon.
Oh, okay, I see where you're coming from. We've seen him in a few things, and like Money Plane, for example.
Money Plane,
where he's like he's one of the bad guys on, you know, overseeing everything and sort of saying, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you know what the next game is and whatever." He turns up all over the place, and I really like him. I think he's got great presence. Another actor who's done quite a few Tanter films and TV work in the past is Peter Woodward, Edward Woodward's son, and I didn't even recognize him. It was like about halfway through the movie, because he's only like a sporting background almost role, and it was only sort of towards the end of it, I was like, that's Peter Woodward. I was barely didn't recognize, because he's playing an American sort of gangster now. So it was really, I thought he did quite well in that role. Wayne Newton is credited at the start, but it's literally a cameo. Yeah, but it's a good cameo. I didn't mind it, but it's kind of really not necessary to, and it's actually quite unbelievable as well that he would actually be know him or whatever. But
but I like that, and in fact that the speech that Cal gives to the waitress, you know, about that story that Wayne Newton told him. You know, that's my favorite bit of the film. I thought you know, that was such a really good, endearing, you know, little sort of story. I thought it worked really well. And you know, the fact that he turned up later and he goes like, "Oh yeah, Cal, yeah, the British guy, yeah, well, yeah, I know him."
It's got that. It does have this kind of fairy tale-ish sort of, you know, it's got that narration that runs through it, which I don't actually think the narration works very well.
I liked it. I liked it. It took me a while to realize who was meant to be narrating. You know.
Oh, I didn't get that until the end. But...
Yeah, no, I figured it out sort of halfway through. But I actually quite liked that. I just wish he had a bit more to say about what, you know, if his dialogue had been a bit funnier, maybe. But, I also want to highlight Bianca Katz as Helen, the sort of love interest in the movie. The waitress,
I thought she was really good. This seems to be like her first role, or one of her first roles, but I thought she did really well. And as I say, Simon Phillips. The film is Simon Phillips basically. You know, it's his movie. It's him doing kind of what he does best. You know, he's been playing roles like this both working with Tanter and other stuff as well for donkey's years.
Did you ever see UFO?
Was that the one with
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Jean-Claude Van Damme, yes. And Pierce Brosnan's son, Sean.
Yeah, he did. There's another one, early one. I remember where he was on an aeroplane and like everyone's disappearing. I can't remember what that one was called now. Yeah, he's been around a bit.
What, Simon Phillips?
Yeah. No, Simon Phillips.
Yeah. So I think in terms of, a lot of it's kind of weird because a lot of Tanter's films, earlier ones than that, I felt like they're trying, you know, to be like something else or whatever. It's like there's some of his you know, if he's listening to it, I do enjoy it. It's just it does, like there's the No Easy Days TV series, which really feels like it's trying to be 24,
right?
But it just doesn't have the money in that to be able to do it. I mean, and he's done quite a lot of TV actually, Tanter, that I haven't actually had a chance to check out. He's very prolific, but I've always enjoyed I've enjoyed his British gangster stuff, like the, what do you call it, White Collar Hooligan. The first two, not the third one. I'm afraid the third one just didn't work for me. But Simon Phillips is just such a big part of that, and even that horror film that he did was like a Saw kind of variation. It's with Doug Bradley doing some voice work on that. Wasn't great, and it did feel like it was trying to be Saw or whatever. But there's interesting stuff about it, and I've always enjoyed watching those films. So he's in a way he's kind of one of my favorite directors to check out. But this is a complete sort of left turn for him. Although there's familiar stuff in there. It is kind of a British gangster movie if you look at it from a certain aspect. But it's this whole grave robbing sort of thing. I think it makes it a bit of and you know, the title and stuff. I think it's a kind of film that's a bit of a hard sell because it's not a particular, you know, pigeon. You know, you can't put it as, you can't say this is British gangsters or whatever. You know, and stuff. It's kind of
it's a
film
caper movie though, isn't it?
It's a caper, it's kind of something that needs word of mouth, I think. And I think I would say it's definitely worth looking up, definitely worth checking out.
No, absolutely, yeah, and it's 100 times better than bloody Blonde Purple. That's for sure. This is pretty solid. Simon Phillips, I must admit, he's grown on me over the years. If you get a chance to see Butchers, I don't think that's been released in the UK yet. I covered it for its Canadian release. He's great in that, and in fact, Doug's in that one as well. Although I didn't realise at the time. And for that particular kind of film, it's one of the best made I've seen. You know, it's a gruesome little thing, but it's very well made.
Well, I think we're going to see Simon Phillips again soon in the Bruce Willis movie Killing Field.
That's right, yeah.
Well, also known as Survive the Game, because he's got a role in that. I don't know how big his role is, but I'm very interested to see. I'm sure it's better. I'm sure he's better than Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
And he might even be in it more than Bruce Willis.
Probably will.
So we'll see.
There's a shot.
Okay, guys. So scores on the doors for Stealing Chaplin. Over to Steve.
I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, and Rich.
I'm going to give it an 8.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to join Steve on a 7 for this one. I think it's definitely worth checking out. 2 7s and an 8 for Stealing Chaplin. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Boglin's Return. As a young boy, Kevin befriended a little creature called a boglin before setting it free to join its family. Now, 30 years later, Kevin and his grandma are besieged by the creatures. Straight away, we know exactly what this is going for, with the logo, which is litigiously close to that of Amblin Entertainment. And you know, there are definite nods to Gremlins all the way through this, but for the most part, quite enjoyable. This is by the same director who did, remind me of the title, Rich? It was Cyborg,
Deadly Machine.
Deadly Machines.
Yeah, the Mace Brothers.
Yes, that's right. Where are they actually from? Because this was dubbed, isn't it? It's dubbed into English.
Yeah, they're French.
I think they're French.
French, that's right, yeah. But yeah, so Steve, how did he get on with Boglin's Return?
It's definitely going for that 80s vibe, isn't it? You know, you've got the Walkman, the Royal Rumble on the TV, but it is just weird as fuck, really. You know, the grandma, which I thought was literally, I thought it was a mannequin sat in a wheelchair till she moved at one point, and I was like, okay. And he's just a bit of a slob, you know, messing around the house, and then these 3 creatures turn up and start, you know, causing havoc. And it is, you know, it's your Gremlins. It's like your Gremlins crossed with Mac and Me in that kind of style.
I was really reminded of Mac and Me. I must
say.
Not in a good way.
No. I mean, I didn't have one, but my mate had a Boglin, and it literally, you know, they just used the toy, you know, and fair enough, you know, it's obviously not massively budgeted, but what they've done, they have done well, and yeah, it's just a bit bizarre in a way, you know, especially like the Hoover bit as well. You know, you're getting like throwing Ghostbusters in there and every 80s thing you can at the wall, basically, and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, I must admit, I was struggling to think, cast my mind back to what a Boglin actually was. And even when I saw them on screen, I'm like, no idea. It wasn't until we had the advert at the end, when you see it in its box, when it's like a cage, that sort of triggered a memory. Oh yeah, now I remember seeing these things sort of knocking around. But yeah, a bit weird. Rich, this interesting sort of follow-up to Cyborg Deadly Machine. Obviously trying to capture a different facet of the 80s zeitgeist, as it were. How successful was this for you?
Not very, unfortunately. I was quite disappointed. I've watched it twice, and in both cases, I watched the French dubbed version because they're both dubbed. They did the same with Cyborg. They say the French dub version and the English dub version. And in both cases, I just thought I don't mind that it's really low budget. That's fair enough. I mean, it's and that they're using the actual Boglin toys for the creatures. It's just it was kind of the story, really. I just felt that, it's an 18-minute film, and there's a story there. They just don't tell the story. It's almost like they don't really pay attention to any sort of narrative or development. It's kind of like it turns up, there's some shtick or whatever, and then you got there's it's like they sort of have segues and they go away and they show a lot of footage of the WWE and stuff, which is fine, but it's almost like that's filler or something. It's like where's the crux of it? It's like the film sort of resolves itself. It develops and then resolves itself too quickly. But there could have done something there, and it just didn't quite work for me. I think the bits where he's like getting tooled up and all the references and bits and bobs and that works quite well, but it just unfortunately doesn't work. It's too slight. It's very slight, and I've seen them do a lot better, and kind of I had really high expectations for it, perhaps too much so. What I did think was interesting was it is essentially, it's not like a fan film kind of thing. It's kind of officially sanctioned by the Boglins company. It says it's like in association with, they've got permission to use the Boglins and stuff, and because the Boglins have returned, they're back in stores. They're available this Christmas and stuff. I think they brought them back. They have brought them back last year or this year, after I don't know when. I don't know if they've been off shelves for many years or whatever. But I certainly remember them when I was young, and then suddenly seeing them coming back, I was a bit surprised. And they haven't changed at all, as far as I can tell. They're literally the same designs. And
I think someone found a warehouse full of them and thought, oh,
yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's like they do like the little musical cue like bit from Gremlins that appears a few times.
There's To be fair, it was interesting seeing the likes of the Undertaker and Ric Flair, 30 years younger, than we're sort of used to. I think for me that the main problem with the film is the fact that the main character is so unlikable.
Yeah. It doesn't work. I mean, there's no character development there. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of they say here's this guy who's like a man child.
Serious arrested development. Yeah, he's still stuck in the 80s. Slavishly so, because he's still got his Walkman and all the rest of it. It's like, well, haven't you just grown up? And I like the music. Very very sort of Kenny Loggins style, sort of upbeat 80s sort of synth music. Thought that was quite good as well. But yeah, the main character is just like, I do not care what happens to you one bit. Yeah, basically, just acting like a dick the whole way through. But that's where it lost me. But but even so,
they are very good. I mean, the Mace brothers, I will say, they're very talented. If if you watch this and you don't enjoy it, don't just sort of take that. Go and see what they're very good at, like spoof trailers and adverts and stuff. Something they do they do this. There's this bit in this where they do the Yves Saint Laurent.
That is funny. Yeah,
but they show it like 3 times. It's like, again, it sort of feels like it comes away from the story, or the lack of a development of the story to sort of show this thing, and then they show it again. Now I think the joke there is that it's called Kelom. But Care L'homme in French means for men, I think. So then they've just sort of spelt it out like Care L'homme with a K and stuff. I think that's the joke. But but why show it like 3 times? I just wanted to see more of developing that idea of the Gremlins and Ghoulies and stuff. And there could have been more to it. I think the trailer, because when I first watched it, it was a trailer, and I thought maybe that's it. They've just done a spoof trailer, and I think that actually works better than actually the film that's resulted. I mean, you want to see some of their really great work, go and see Cyborg Deadly Machine, because that's got so much, inventiveness and production values and whatever. It's a really high quality production, free to watch on YouTube, and it's like 50-minute film. This is this is a yeah, it's very slight. Go and watch some of their other stuff. I would say.
Have they announced a Deadly Cyborg 2 at all yet?
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen it.
Remember, because that ended on a cliffhanger, didn't it? If I remember rightly.
Well, they're probably. It's hard to say. I mean, I haven't seen anything officially announced, but they're probably open to do that kind of thing. I would have thought.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't score the shorts that we discuss, but we do recommend you check them out. In this case, we recommend you sort of dig a bit deeper into their back catalogue and take a look. But you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Our DTV throwback this week is Get Carter. Casino enforcer John Carter gets word that his brother Richie has died in a drink driving accident in Seattle. Storming back to his hometown, Carter starts to make waves as he refuses to believe his brother's death was an accident. So we're in remake territory here. This is from the year 2000, a remake of the 1971 classic with Michael Caine. Stallone is really, really good here, and the cast, the whole cast is superb. This got a bit of a kicking at the time, Sean. Care to elaborate?
I love this movie. I'm just going to get right out of the gate and say it. I have always adored this movie. This is for me personally. This is Sylvester Stallone. This for me, I want to stress this for me because I know that I'm in the minority to the general public. This is top 5 Sylvester Stallone for me, without a doubt. I remember seeing this movie opening night back in October of 2000, and I come back to it usually about once every couple of years. And it's like I said, I can go on about this film, the reasons why I think it is so awesome, you know, compared to everything else that he has done. But what's interesting is, yeah, like you said, Mike, this film got a kicking when it first came out. It's continued to get a kicking. I think a lot of people, even hardcore Stallone fans, seem to put this as one of his worst. So I guess if you guys did not like it, I'd be interested to hear why, because I have nothing but positive things to say about this, but it just seems to get trashed by so many. So I'd be interested to hear if you guys did not like it, why. So then that way I can fire back with some retorts.
Steve, let's start with you. Like or not?
Nope.
Oh, why not?
I thought it was very muddled. The actual plot was just all over the place. You know, there's no real impetus into why he thinks his brother is being killed and it's not an accident. You know, someone says, oh, he never drank. His daughter says he never drank, and everyone else is saying, well, yeah, he did. And then he's got some girl on the side, and that's kind of the impetus to him to look into it. It just seems very, very weak. I mean, Stallone is okay in it. He doesn't give off the normal charisma that I think he gives off in this. I think he's very subdued and very...
I'm going to be like Sean. I'm going to disagree on that point, but keep going.
But I mean, it's like when we watched the one the other week with Tom Berenger.
Collection.
You know, he's got that suaveness about him that he's giving off, and this it just seems, well, I'm just going to try and act gritty and be miserable and not do anything. I don't know. It just didn't grab me at all, and. Alan Cummings as well. I normally like him. He got me tits in this. He really was annoying character.
I see. I'm with you on that one, Steve.
He looked, yeah. I thought it was Paul Rubens at first. You know, sort of from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but yeah. And
then, like, you know, the bit with his niece, it just came out of nowhere. You know, the disc and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't get on with it. I really didn't.
Rich, obviously you disagree with Steve.
Well, on some things and some things not. I saw this. This took a long time to get a UK release. I think it was from what I look on the BBFC, it was originally intended as a cinema release, but for one reason or another, it didn't happen. I ended up first seeing it on an imported video CD, And it wasn't what I wanted from Stallone at that time. And I think it's probably, I don't think it's Stallone's fault necessarily as sort of the overall film. And I'm coming back and watching it again because I did see it a few times back then, but I haven't seen it for a long time. I see it with different eyes, but I do still see some of the same things, but I understand a bit more why I don't like them. I think it's more, I'm saying, looking at it again, I think I see much more strengths in Stallone's performance and his character and how cool he looks in those suits. Put any of my favorite action heroes in a really smart suit. I love that because I like Steven Seagal, my hero. Not necessarily off screen, but on screen hero. He always often was dressing in really smart suits, and it's nice to see Stallone in some great suit, shirts and ties and everything. He looks great. And there's a whole bit in the story where they sort of say, why are you dressing like that and stuff, and he sort of kind of addresses that he's trying to he's dressing to sort of trying to turn things around. He doesn't want to be a thug and stuff, but he's kind of still there. But I thought that was quite good. Stallone always, as we saw with Collection, and as we've seen in Rocky and all these sorts of things, he's a guy who loves to give a speech in a movie, which I've never really picked up on before. But he has this rooftop speech that he gives to Rachel Lee Cook's character, which I think is it's a really strong scene. I think he does really well with it. He went in the right fit, given with the right material and stuff. He might be a bit of a one-note dramatic actor, but he is a good dramatic actor. What I don't like about, I'll talk about some other aspects, but what I don't like about the film necessarily is the aesthetic of it and the choices that were made. It's a slow burn. It's not an action movie. They have put some action into it. There's a few moments of action, like 2 car chases, elevator fight scene, stuff like that. But it is much more of a drama with a sort of a thriller element. But then the director's, it's over edited at times. It's very slowly paced, but then it's over edited. Oh God! All the avid farts and stuff that he puts in, whoosh whoosh whoosh, and jump cuts and stuff unnecessarily, which just didn't really work for me.
You've got it's like he can't finish a scene. It goes like the scene in the diner with Rachel Lee Cook. It's like 4 scenes cut into one.
Yeah.
Well, I like the opening of the film.
Yeah.
So I like at the funeral and everything. A lot of it feels like incomplete scenes that have been sort of patchworked together. Other bits work much better. Now I'll move to focusing on some of the performances and stuff. I love Mickey Rourke in this. He gets he gets several scenes with Stallone, and he's really good. He's perfectly cast, and we see him play variations on that same character to this day. But what was that one we watched? I can't remember what it was. We watched a while ago with Take Down.
Oh, Take Back.
Take Back.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
So he was really good. Rachel Lee Cook is great. Ronan Mitra's in there as well. Miranda Richardson, Queenie from Blackadder.
That was so bizarre.
John C. McGinley overdoing it in my view. I thought, oh, there's another example of the jump cuts. The don't take care of the business, or the business take care of you, and they edit it like that really annoying sort of over editing on that bit that he does, which jarred with me. Alan Cumming is just terribly annoying. I don't mind him in some stuff, but like in GoldenEye, he's one of the reasons I don't go back and watch that film very much. Michael Caine is being Michael Caine, which is great. And what was it? I could have. Oh, Gretchen Mol is the sort of the girlfriend character, which we don't really see her much anymore. But for a moment,
she's uncredited too. Yeah. She's uncredited in the film, which is really.
Is Tom Sizemore the guy?
Yes,
that is Tom Sizemore, and he's also uncredited.
Yeah, because he's got a very distinctive voice, and I was thinking that must be Tom Sizemore, and I couldn't see him credited. But Gretchen Mol, absolutely gorgeous, perfectly as a gangster's mole in this. She looks great, and. One name I did see on the credits, who's much better known now, who even when I was watching the film, I didn't recognise him. Johnny Strong, is in there as one of the bad guys.
Which is interesting because he very much picks and chooses his roles. He doesn't look at his acting career as being his his main throughput, as it were. Apparently he's sort of really into sort of like designing knives and things like this, and also his sort of music and things. So he's one of these sort of like raconteurs, sort of got a lot of figures and a lot of pies. So I was kind of surprised to see him in this. He was in things like the first Fast and Furious movie and Black Hawk Down, and then sort of later stuff with William Kaufman. But yeah, I was really happy to see him pop up in this, even though he's a complete cunt in the film.
Now, here's a question. Here's something I want to throw it back to Sean. I haven't seen the original Get Carter, and I don't know if any of you guys have, but Mike, I knew you would have done. But Sean, had you seen the original with
Yeah, and I mean, and it's a completely different animal than this particular film, and I would say that I think we can all agree, those who've seen it, is Michael Caine is so much meaner than Stallone is, and that's saying something with this particular film. I do almost kind of wonder if maybe it was not a remake of that particular film, if it was kind of its own animal, if might have that.
I think it went back to the original source novel, didn't it? For the, but rather than sort of being a direct remake.
Well, they sort of say that, but it is they use the original Get Carter theme.
Yes, they do quite nicely.
Which quite nice, and I think that's a great example of they take the original theme and then they make it as the credits progress. When they've used it on the opening credits, they modernize it. Tyler Bates has rejigged it, and I thought it sounds excellent. It's one of the best bits of the. It's a great theme, and they've done a great thing to it. But I thought, it's just going to be the standard theme, and then it goes, they sort of does a sort of sound, and then the sort of more rock sort of stuff kicks in. A really good take on it, I thought. But
when you guys, sorry, no, I'm sorry.
The theme of Get Carter is the only thing I'm familiar with, because I've still never seen the film. So I was just interested. The one thing I do pick up on, which would have been from the book as well, is they didn't change the character names, which are obviously very old-fashioned names, like Geraldine and Doreen. I'm surprised they didn't modernize those, but I guess that's another aspect of trying to stay fairly faithful to the sources.
Well, you guys mentioned all of the edits, and by all accounts, you guys are right. I mean, it is overly edited, and
it's of its time, though, isn't it?
It's of its time, and yes, exactly, Mike. Yeah, and I mean, look, I've talked about this before with a couple buddies, is that Stallone, if you look at his entire body of work, his entire filmography, it really is almost a fascinating mirror into his own life. Okay, because every one of his films really parallels what was going on with him personally in terms of his personal life, his career choices, etc. And what's so interesting about him is, look, he, for all intents and purposes, we can say he's probably one of the biggest stars ever that we've ever seen. But what's interesting about all of his films is he's a guy who has always insisted on maintaining complete control of the project. Okay, so if you look at a lot of his films, especially in his prime, they were directed by relative no-names. I mean, if you look at a film like Demolition Man, that was directed by Marco Brambilla. Like, who is that guy? Same thing with Tango and Cash, The Specialist. This particular film was directed by Stephen Kay, and this was one of Stephen Kay's very first movies. And I think the reason for that is because when you're directing a guy like Stallone, yes, you may be the credited director on the film, but in the end, it's going to be Sylvester Stallone who's going to be running the ship and calling all of the shots on set. And I remember when Stallone was on The Tonight Show promoting this film, he showed the diner scene with him and Rachel Lee Cook, and he said, look, I wanted to cut this scene to show all facets of the conversation. He's always been in addition to being an actor, he's an artist as well. And so I think he's always been one to kind of toy with editing techniques and things of that nature. I mean, we saw what he did with the Rocky IV director's cut recently. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I would agree. It's of its time, and maybe it is a little jarring to an extent, but I don't think it's any more distracting than the original Rocky IV, for that matter. You know what I mean? And that was something that he also had complete control of. Something else I want to mention real quick, is because you guys mentioned, is all of the characters in this film all have something to chew on, and that's something that you don't see too often in a 100-minute movie. I mean, you think about it, every one of these characters all have their moments in this film where they can shine. Even Miranda Richardson, who in the end, all she's playing is the widow, but even she has something. And that's just something that I love about it, is that every character has something, and they are all delivering amazing performances. And even before, I will say, even before Sly was nominated for Creed back in 2015, anybody who ever said that, you know, he's monosyllabic or he can't act or anything, I always said, watch the rooftop scene from Get Carter, because that scene will literally, it's like a gut punch that will turn your heart. It is so heartbreaking. And when you watch that scene, you can see the pain that is in Sly's face as Rachel Lee Cook is recounting that. I'm sorry, guys. I can keep going on, but I dig this movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, that scene is very good. And what's impressive about it is the fact that, you know, Carter has to be very delicate as to how he broaches the subject. He never once says, "I watched the tape," or anything like that. I know what happened, you know. But he sort of insinuates it and sort of, you know, just prods her into the right sort of direction. And he's not even asking her to, you know, to tell him what happened, you know. But she feels comfortable enough to do that. So yeah, it's a really good emotive scene. It's interesting what you said about Stallone always wanting to have control, especially with Demolition Man, because me and my mates at the time, we put that at Joel Silver's feet. You know, sort of a no-name director sort of coming in, thought, yeah, that's Joel Silver wanting control and everything, as he sort of usually does. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I love the movie though, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority. It always kind of bummed me out when I saw that it got nominated for a bunch of Razzies when it came out.
Yeah,
Like, people
like to be snarky about Stallone, I think.
But the other thing is, I think, you know, the original is so iconic. You know, even though I haven't seen it, you know, it's one of the most iconic roles that Michael Caine ever had, and you know, it's kind of like no remake was gonna get away unscathed, you know. And the fact that you took someone like Stallone, who's such a different personality, you know, such a different presence to Michael Caine, and you're really Americanizing it, you know. I think this is I'd say this is a better remake. I mean, I haven't seen the original, but I'd say it's arguably a better remake of a Michael Caine film than the Italian Job was.
Oh, definitely.
Which barely resembled the original, and didn't really carry any of what Michael Caine actually brought to it. Whereas I think, you know, this one, you know, Michael Caine's on board, he's endorsing it. He's, you know, he worked with, again, another film I've never seen, Escape to Victory, that he did with Stallone many years previously.
Yeah.
So he was quite keen to, you know, support the project and that. And I think that works well. I think in terms of the plot and the story, it does kind of go around the houses a bit. I mean, there's kind of, he kind of gets to a point where it seems like he's got a solution, and then he kind of gets
he seems to take everyone's word for, you know, face value. So it's like, oh, it wasn't me, it was that guy, go talk to him. I go, all right, I'll go talk to him. And then they sort of point back to the other guy, you know. It's like, yeah, so you do sort of spend a bit of time, you know, very, very slowly sort of picking up clues as he sort of goes round and round.
And I wasn't massively happy with the resolution. I mean, in terms of, you know, what it was, it just didn't, in terms of it, the thriller aspect of it, and, you know, the MacGuffin of a disc and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's kind of not the point. I mean, the point is it is more like an ensemble drama than either an action movie or a thriller. Although I will say the car chase, car chases, but like, so this is. It's a very strange thing, but it's a Christmas movie. It's set at Christmas, but only in a few scenes does that become apparent. and mainly this is in the action scenes. So whether they will shoot in the action scenes separately, and by that time it was Christmas, I don't know. But you got a car chase, and they go for a Christmas tree lot and everything, which was really good. And then you got the elevator fight scene, which Mike, I'm sure you appreciated, which is set to Silent Night.
Yeah. Well, they almost ruined that, didn't they, with the sort of the editing, because he's sort of picturing in his mind, isn't he, sort of how the fight's going to go down.
I like that. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. It was all right.
They do leave things open. I mean, again, spoiler, but they do leave things open a bit with we don't ever find out Mickey Rourke's fate. You know what I mean? And that's something that's always kind of bugged me, but I guess we can assume that it does go one way, considering at the end, before he says goodbye, you could hear sirens in the distance. So I mean, I don't know.
It is a bit odd,
in terms of editing,
especially after what he did to Johnny Strong. You know?
Yeah. Well, that was gonna be my point, Mike. Yeah, is in terms of editing, that is one edit. Okay. Yes, like we said, it is a little the editing is a little jarring in some moments, but that is one edit that I have always loved. Okay. And shoot, I'm thinking about going back and watching it now. But it's the scene where right before he kills Johnny Strong, Johnny Strong begs him and he says, please, he goes, don't kill me. And then if you remember, Jack Carter, Stallone's character, says, no, you killed yourself. And then you see the look of doom on Johnny Strong's face. And then it immediately cuts to Stallone leaving the building, throwing his gloves in the dumpster and seeing the car. That right there is dope. I mean, that is just like, you don't need to see him throwing him off the building. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's one of those inevitable things, definitely.
Yeah.
The only thing I was a bit unsure of was what Michael Caine was doing. You know, how his character was actually involved. Because really,
this is what I'm saying. This is what kind of bugged me. The whole resolution, the way it tied up, it just didn't quite work for me. I didn't quite have the pieces.
He could have just stayed. He could have just stayed out of it. He could have just let him keep the disc. Just keep his hands off it, and then no one would have been any the wiser. You know, but
it felt like a resolution. You know, with those two characters because of who they are.
It's almost like it's one of those sort of like It's almost like audience reaction kind of thing. You know, sort of somebody's had notes. Go, no, we need a resolution between these two characters before we be satisfied. But yeah.
So is this John Wick before John Wick?
Yes.
No.
Like
I hate that.
Heavy.
No, I hate that bollocks. I'm sorry.
Maybe it's not his John Wick, but I think it's his attempt to play a pretty dirty anti-hero who doesn't play by the rules. And it's not John Wick all the way, but I think I would say to an extent, I think it's Stallone's version of that. It's probably the best version we're going to get of that, in my opinion.
Nobody should be trying to do John Wick apart from Keanu Reeves, and I shall carry that to my grave. But just don't do John Wick. Let John Wick be John Wick. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Do something else. Don't try.
Yeah, but John Wick is a rip-off of loads of other stuff. It's not like it's original. But this is a whole separate discussion. But
anyway, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend them. That's why we curate them at the end of each episode, because we do want you to go check these things out. This one is available on IMDb TV. You do have to put up with adverts.
There were too many adverts.
There were too many. But to their credit, they do let a scene finish before throwing an advert at you. There's one of the other channels. I can't remember which one it is. But just wind me up, because the adverts would appear mid-scene, and it's so bloody annoying. At least this one allows the scene to finish. Oh, here's an advert. Okay, fine. If I'm going to put up with adverts, that's the way to do it, I guess.
It was good to see it turn up though, because it's not actually got the sort of exposure on the streaming services as most other films. So it's actually it was a real surprise to see it turn up. So I was really glad for the chance to revisit.
Anyway, you will find a link to the trailer in the footnotes below. And that's the end of this week's show. So thank you to Sean Malloy for joining me, Rich and Steve, talking about these wonderful films this evening. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also, our sister show, The Short Shots, has its own Twitter page where Rich will post a new link to a new short film every night. So thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.